for sharing that. Now moving on, French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has announced that his government intends to criminalize calls for the destruction of any country, a move aimed at combating rising anti-Semitism. Speaking at the annual conference of the Representative Council of French Jewish Institutions in Paris, Lecornu has revealed that the controversial bill proposed by Caroline Yadan would be introduced to the French Parliament by April 2026. The bill seeks to fight renewed forms of anti-Semitism by banning calls for the destruction of any state and expanding the crime of defending terrorism. The French Prime Minister specifically highlighted that calls for the destruction of Israel, including the phrase "from the river to the sea," would no longer be tolerated, as such rhetoric endangers lives. He also noted that while criticism of Israeli policies is legitimate, he has condemned the current Israeli government's actions in the West Bank, which he describes as a violation of international law. Now we welcome back Ambassador Suresh Goel. He's a former Indian diplomat, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador Goel, for staying with us. Now looking at this, do you think that this will make any difference, this new law would make any difference in the free speech right of France? How do you think this will be received by French people?
I think this anti-Semitic law is a kind of a broad brush sweep to essentially just send a message to people in France that anti-Semitism will not be tolerated. But as we know, in France, there have been a huge number of protests and expression of support for the Palestinian rights, and what is happening in Gaza has led to several loud protests, really. And obviously, Israel is not happy about those kind of protests taking place in France. However, France also has a huge Arab population who are now French citizens, and they have their own views on what is happening in Gaza. In fact, most of the Europe is rather against what is happening in Gaza. So I think by passing the law, France is sending a message that, look, we are not in favor of attack on Israel or against the Jews, the vocal protests, etc., etc. At the same time, I don't think that they will go beyond a point to impose those kind of restrictions on their own citizens when they're protesting on what is happening in Gaza.
Right. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank Ambassador Goel for sharing that insight. Now moving on to